I was really hoping that this version of the Father Monologues would have more to do with employment for those types of things, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to cover the subject of grief. Kathleen's dying right now, and a lot of the decisions for medical care are going to rest up to me. And this may be something that you may run into later on in life, and I hope to God you don't. But that isn't going to stop it from happening. People will tell people that they're exceptionally strong, and that's why they can deal with grief. There are people that will, uh, they can't handle dealing with a dying loved one, and so they will distance themselves. But somebody has to be the one to go and offer that comfort when somebody is dying. I worked in a nursing home for 10 years, and I sat next to hundreds of people that were dying, and even prepared their bodies and stuff for the family to go and see them. So I am used to that particular aspect of it. Doesn't mean that I particularly enjoy it. With Kathleen, she is kind of sedated and she's in kind of a coma. So I go there every day and I sit down next to her and I hold her hand and I try to tell her the things that I hope she needs to hear, because she's still there even if we can't see that. A lot of people will believe that there are people that are just exceptionally strong and can make the perfect decision for everything. And that's what's expected from all of us. And that's really not true. Um, I would love to have said at the time that I've taken care of Kathleen since she had her stroke in October that I was a perfect guy. Always said the right thing that she needed to hear. Didn't have any anger issues, didn't feel frustrated, didn't feel impatient, and I cannot tell you that. I can tell you that I experienced all of those things, and there's sometimes I was a real dick. Kathleen had a tendency to, we'd go to the hospital every day for her treatments, and she would not tell the doctors specifically how bad she's having things. She would save it for me when we got home. Well, I'm not a medical doctor and I can't fix any of these things like difficulties breathing, nausea, or any of those items. So we would end up having to go back to ER most times over the weekend. And I will admit, I was not very happy with that, especially since we were on site and all of those types of things. But on the good note is I was always there. I was always there to take her places, and I was always there to sit out here and help her through. And, after she's gone, I'll probably beat myself up for some types of things. But now it's going to be natural for all of us. But there isn't any particular person who is especially gifted for dealing with this. We deal with these things by experience. It's one of the reasons why I like small animals. When we deal with loving and dying and all of that through animals, it helps us when we have to deal with things in a larger picture. And you're not going to know what to do. And so I set up some basic guidelines for myself. Right now, she is in a ventilator, and the question is always going to come up on whether or not to pursue life or a cure or that type of thing. And so what I'm doing is I talk to the doctors. Her oncologist is a especially optimistic individual, and I appreciate that. But right now, what I need is hard truths. What are the real chances of a cure? She has stage 4B cervical cancer, which means that it spread from the cervix all the way up to her lungs, and it's called metastasis, and the chances of survival are very, very slim. If it's caught in time, there's like, I don't know, like a 15% chance, and of course we're going to pursue that. We're going to give her chemo, but right now she can't take it because her heart rate's too accelerated, and they're trying to get her under control. So what will happen is next week I'll have to make some decisions regarding this, whether we're going to go with hospice, where I'm going to ask them if she can stable enough to take me off of the ventilator, if she can get to that point, then and then they can give her some chemo to try to stop the spread or put it in a controlled space, and then maybe we may be able to let her die at home with hospice care. The biggest miracle would be that if they can stabilize her, she gets off the ventilator, they start her on chemo, and then the chemo is effective against the cancer and it pushes it back, then she might be able to live for another year. Or she may not even be able to be stable enough to get off of the vent, in which case, if that's going to be the longer term duration, I'll probably have to make the decision to take her off the ventilator. Basically, it's trying to choose between what is best for her comfort-wise and against robbing her a chance of a cure. I don't want to rob her of a cure, and I don't at the same time want her to suffer forever. And so I have to set these specific guidelines up. Kathleen told the oncologist before she was going under that she wanted him to treat her like he would treat his own mother. I have a different opinion and told him so. I don't want him to treat her like she's a family member. I want him to apply reason and all of the medical things that disconnect him from the heart. I want him to use his mind. My job is to use the heart. My job is to hear the things that he's going to say from a completely logical level. If the oncologist was treating his mother, I'm sure that he would hold on and would not want to let her go, which could in the long term impact her ability to be comfortable, and it may hurt her, and nobody wants to spend months in agony. At the same time, I don't want her to go quickly either, but we have to make those difficult choices. And going through all of this, what I wanted to say more than anything else is there's not a special gifted person who can go and deal with negative emotions. We have to learn to have our negative emotions. We can't pretend that we're going to be happy all the time. We can't pretend that we're never going to feel inconvenience. We can't pretend that we're never frustrated. We can't pretend that that's not the normal response that people have. There is no gifted individual who can walk in and shoulder everything all the time and be happy about it. And if you do, that person is probably not dealing with anything at all. And there will be people that will judge you based on how you're responding. Are you crying enough? Are you not crying enough? I'm putting all of my emotions in a compartmentalized box because I have to think about things. And I can't base it on that, and I can't fall apart for Kathleen because she needs me to be strong more so than I need to be weak. When this is all over, I am sure that I'm going to hide in a bedroom somewhere and just spend a couple days just completely distressing. Because, and that's the other thing is that if I appear distant to you guys or I don't sit out here and go about this, I'm not going to, it's because I handle grief alone. I deal with grief better when I'm not worried about somebody worrying about me. And that's kind of how it continues on. I stress, then someone stresses because I'm stressed, and then I'm stressing because they're stressing because I'm stressing, and then it's just something that I personally don't like dealing with. I also don't want to sit out here and not deal with the negative emotions, which means that there's some people that when somebody dies, they don't want to think about them anymore, and I think that's a horrible way for people to be. Matter of fact, that's kind of the reason why I do the whole genealogy thing, is because I want people to be remembered, and I will remember Kathleen, and she is a part of me. I had adventures with her that I never would have had with anybody else. We went to France, we went to England, we went to a poetry reading out in New York. We did things together, and that will always be part of me, and I will always remember it, and I won't take her aside and put her into a different place where I don't want to think about negative stuff. There's no formula for grief, and I think that's what I'm wanting to relay here. There is no formula, and I'm documenting things as they're going across, just strictly because that's the real part of it. There is no textbook. There is nothing along that line. It's just something along the line that we don't deal with these things because we have a supernatural strength. We don't deal with these things because we want to. We deal with these things because we have to. Somebody has to make the decision. Somebody has to take that burden on. Somebody has to feel these things. If you don't feel, if you're unable to feel any hurt, well, then you're not going to feel any love. It's kind of like a two-way street. You have to, in order to love something, be willing to face the negatives about that love. And I would rather do that than not feel anything. It's also the part where we start thinking about an afterlife and stuff like that, what happens after. I'm not 100% of the belief that there's going to be a specific heaven for Kathleen. I like to think that she will take her consciousness and it'll go on to something else, and that's what I hold on to specifically. Atheism doesn't offer me much in this particular category, and I have seen through life that life is nothing but a series of constant transformations, and so I have to believe that Kathleen will transform into something else. And that's about all I have to say. Um, she was a very loving person, and I will definitely miss her. But I will always remember her because that's what we have to do. Grief is just something we have to face, and we have to do it our way. Love you guys. I hope at some point this may help you later on when you have to make similar decisions. Just know that if you feel like you messed up, if you feel like you're doing something wrong, just understand that you're doing something, and that's what really matters.